The James E. Armstrong Award was established in 1978 and is conferred on an alumnus who is a current employee of Notre Dame and has rendered distinguished service to our university. Hard but fair. The woman I want to become. The reason I graduated. One of my greatest mentors. The reason I stuck with engineering. The perfect role model for engineers everywhere. An incredible advisor and even better friend. The fiercest advocate you could have in your corner. Highly intelligent, motivated, and innovative. A force for good. These are the words students have used to describe College of Engineering's Dean of Academic Affairs, Catherine Pieronek, before her passing in April of 2015. Kathy, as her students called her, had one of the most difficult jobs on campus. She was responsible for providing 900 young adults with their best chance at academic success in the midst of all the other opportunities Notre Dame provides. Students who just years earlier had been at the top of their high school classes. They had never failed. And they were sent to Kathy's second floor office in Fitzpatrick Hall when their grades dropped and academic probation or suspension was looming. The phrase, "the fear of God," had been used by more than a few of those students. You see, Kathy did not accept excuses, but if you put in the effort, she would match you every step. Work with professors, rectors, counseling staff, and parents to fight for your success. Kathy knew what it took to make it in engineering. After receiving her bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering in '84, her career started by designing, developing, and launching spacecraft. In 1986, she won the Gamma Ray Observatory Technical Achievement Award. In '89, the TRW Women of Achievement Award. And in '91, the NASA Program of Excellence Award. I'm going to repeat that one. The NASA Program of Excellence Award. She then returned to Notre Dame to get her JD from, and graduated magna cum laude. She was looking for a real challenge, and all the things I've mentioned up to now are before she has done the things that we think makes her great. During her time in the dean's office, Kathy raised the retention rates across the college. She is primarily responsible for the increase in retention and graduation rates of female engineers. She was the type of advisor you went back to see every time you were on campus, the type you would always want a recommendation letter from. Kathy died unexpectedly in April of 2015 while employed by the university. She was the director of the Law School Relations from 1995 until 2002, and the founding director of the Women's Engineering Program in 2002, director of Academic Affairs in 2006, Assistant Dean for Academic Affairs in 2009, Associate Dean for Academic Affairs. She continued her director role with Women's Engineering Program throughout her tenure. She won the Telly Award, partnered with the Mass School of Law for Outstanding Cable Programming, the Davy Award for Creative Excellence. In November of 2014, named a Fellow of the Society of Women Engineers. Outstanding Faculty Advisor Award by the Society of Women Engineers in 2007, and an active participant in the Notre Dame Club of Greater Cincinnati. And now I'd like to introduce Chuck Shedluck, Kathy's husband.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. I would like to accept, and I'm proud to accept, this award on behalf of Kathy and her family and her colleagues who helped her do what she did. She received, I was trying to come up with a list of different other awards that she got, and getting them from different sources. I mean, there were so many that I'm not going to list them here, and I don't know that there is a list any place, but ones that stick out in my mind, just to name three, are she won when she was at the law school, the Black Law Students Association recognized her for providing assistance. She won the university's Dockweiler Award, and she also won, I believe, one of the inaugural Women of Notre Dame Awards some years ago. So you lose track of those things, and there were a lot of them, and well deserved. I'd like to share one story. When she was working initially, after being hired at the law school to do some publications work, get some publications out on time, and so forth, and it was a temporary job. I think it was full-time, but it's temporary, very temporary. But it looked like that was going to change. And at one point when she was in the Basilica of Sacred Heart, and then on a subsequent visit to a spot on campus as a part of that experience, she got a sudden feeling and sudden direction, and as we were talking about a little bit, messages, she received the sudden conviction that she should be here at Notre Dame, the clear sense that this is where she should be. And she thought, I've spent 8 or 9 years in the space program. I've done what I wanted. I've done my ambitions. I've achieved what I wanted to do to help launch satellites. And I've lived for myself, not in a bad way, but lived for myself and done what my career called for. And she decided that she was going to do what God wanted her to do instead. And that was the clear sense that she should be here. I think the way she phrased it was, or the message was, God wants you at Notre Dame, was a very clear and unmistakable message that she received. And at the time, again, she's in a job that might be ending, but she decided to follow God's will rather than go back and try to work for NASA or maybe a law firm or back into the corporate world, where she was a pretty accomplished engineer. And on that day, Kathy went to a particular spot on campus that I've shown there. It is a spot that's not a very prominent spot. I mean, it's not the grotto. It's, if you're standing looking where that is, Old College is directly to your left, and the log chapel is back over your left shoulder somewhere. So it's kind of an obscure spot, but it has a plaque there, a pretty inspirational plaque that overlooks the lake, and you can see that in, I think, towards the right edge of the photograph. And that continued her conviction that God wants me at Notre Dame as part of that same day, this major spiritual experience, and her making the significant choice to remain here and to stay here and do what she could if that's what God wanted her to do. And there wasn't any question in that. Now, I mentioned on that plaque that you saw in the photograph is a letter from the founder of the university, I'm sure most of you know, Father Soren, to the founder and I think the leader at the time of the Congregation of the Holy Cross back in France. And he writes a number of things in that letter that are shown on the placard, the plaque that overlooks the lake. And the part I wanted to note that I think spoke to her, and we've talked about it many times, is the next to the last paragraph at the end. Father Soren wrote, This college cannot fail to succeed. Before long, it will develop on a large scale. It will be one of the most powerful means for good in this country. And Kathy found that inspiring on that day, and on later days when she was feeling down or frustrated with the university or her mission, or thought that she wasn't having the traction that she would like to have, she would go back to that plaque. She would think of it often, but she would go back to that spot for inspiration and a further affirmation that God wanted her at Notre Dame. Incidentally, on that spot some years later, we met in 1997, and I asked her to marry me late in 2005. And after she said yes, we went and got a ring. And a few days later, I did a formal proposal with the ring on the knee, right there by that plaque. So she stayed at Notre Dame, like God wanted her to do. But let's take a look at what following that direction got her. What did that path get her? Where did it take her? And it took her here to where we are and the university as it is today. It brought her advancements, a thriving role in a thriving community, some measure of accomplishments, and even some acclaim, as we've seen. A chance to impact the lives of and to be impacted by great students and great colleagues. Increased leadership here and in the Society of Women Engineers nationally and regionally and elsewhere in her profession. It let her increase ties to God, country, Notre Dame, and family. And at this point, I'll try to introduce the family that I believe is here. At this table here is her mother, Joanne, her brother. Her brother, Tom, who did serve a term on the alumni board. Her sister, Patty Frost. And her brother-in-law, Ian Frost. Besides Dean Kilpatrick, I know that there are a couple other close colleagues of hers that came today on behalf of the College of Engineering. So I'll just mention them. Bob Cunningham at the College of Engineering and Leo McWilliams at the College of Engineering, I think are kind of the official delegation from the college today, along with Peter. It also brought her, as I alluded to, a new family, a husband, rabbits, as some of you know, new colleagues, new friends, particularly as she became more and more involved with the daily work of the university and served on what seemed like 70 or 80 committees. I don't know if there's a committee she was never asked to join at the university, and she liked doing it. Another quick story, when she was at Notre Dame Law School, Dean David Link, now Father Link, some of you know, after his wife died, he went back to the seminary in his late 60s and early 70s and became a priest. And he had a special deal with the Diocese of Gary, where he has a permanent assignment as a chaplain in a prison. He used to, I think it's fair to say he used to delight in when he was at gatherings like this one or around the country, and Kathy was with him, as she often was, in her role handling the alumni relations. He used to say, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to run the law school, but we have one. And I know the engineers are cringing because, they're not rocket scientists. There are no rocket scientists. They're engineers. But he took delight in that, I think, and said it. I personally heard him say it probably like 20 times. So one other thing I was doing was trying to identify the constellation of skills that Kathy had, that she brought, that allowed her to accomplish this sort of continual climb during her all too short career here. She could think and write like a lawyer, and we all know, apologies to the engineers, they tend not to be very good writers. She could analyze like an engineer. She was able to synthesize both ideas and data, statistics, in a reasonable way and in a way that was very compelling at meetings and policy-making sessions and so forth. She could reach conclusions and plans from those ideas and that data, and she could then effectively implement them with both care and being tough when she acted. I'm glad that you mentioned the quotes where the students described her. I thought about including that or projecting that. Decided not to, but I read it again. That was from a letter that was co-signed by a bunch, maybe a dozen former and current students of engineering who wrote those things at the beginning of their letter that they sent in and the Observer published. And right, she was hard. I remember a priest at the engineering memorial talk last year that they had for her. The priest mentioned one of the first times that he heard that she died that day, one of the students came into his office and was saying, yeah, I dealt with her. Man, she was hard. And I don't think he meant difficult. I think he meant she was hard. But she cared. She could care and she could be tough at the same time. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to run the university or to help run the undergraduate engineering program, but along with faith and trust and hard work, it helped to have a rocket scientist, one especially who, like Kathy, operated always and above all else out of love for the place, for the people, for God. So on behalf, again, of the family, we appreciate the award, which deserves great share to her family and their inspiration and support, and to her colleagues at the College of Engineering and before that at the law school. So I greatly appreciate it, and I know that she appreciates it and is very much gratified, as if her happiness in heaven could be any more complete. Thank you.